Hi, this is Bill Prater, and welcome to the Business Builder Show, where we feature champions in their respective industries from all over the planet. Our mission is to provide you with timely, provocative, and actionable resources that will inspire, promote, and accelerate your quest for business excellence. Today, we're going to find out why Iron Man Woman is the future of sales. And John Barrows will walk us through how that is. Now, John is the CEO of JB Sales, which is a sales training company focused on elevating the people and professions of all those involved with sales. He's trained and consulted with some of the world's fastest growing sales teams, like some of the big guys like Salesforce.com and Zoom and Amazon and LinkedIn and many others like that. He's an active seller, which means that he still does his own prospecting and manages his own deal pipelines because he believes that you can't teach sales unless you live sales, especially with how fast everything is growing now. And John, I'm looking forward to your insights on those topics.
I'm looking forward to the conversation, Bill. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
So, John, sales is a big term. So,
Yeah.
narrowing it in a bit, who do you serve?
I'll start with broad and then I'll get specific. Ultimately, I serve sales reps who give a shit. And I say that because I think that there's a lot of people who just go through the motions and are just showing up and pressing buttons and they don't care enough to evolve. Those people, I can't get you to care. But once you care, once you really commit to this profession and want to get better, I will give you literally everything I got. And so, with that as the broad stroke, and this is organizations and individuals, but mostly to get very specific, it's B2B sellers, either individual sales reps or teams. I have a membership that individuals can take advantage of, and I train some of the largest teams in the world. And it's really to give them structure and an agile structure and framework that they can use to evolve in what's happening right now. Because I've never been in a sales environment in my 28 years of selling here that has changed so much so fast, and especially with all the AI stuff that's going on right now. I really do believe that I'm concerned for the profession of sales, quite frankly, because AI is coming so fast and the tolerance of clients for limited value is very low. And so we really have to level up right now, and we have to level up now. It's not a if, it's a when.
Let me zero in on these problems you sort of tickled a little bit.
Mhm.
So, what are the major problems, John, that sales organizations, sales reps in particular, have that you can solve?
Look, for the past 10 years, since 2010, effectively, I call it the golden age of sales. 2010 to 2022 is the golden age of sales. We've way over engineered the sales process. We've taught way more on the tech and the process than we have the fundamentals and the business acumen. And now that sale interest rates are where they are, money isn't free anymore, and it's not a grow at all cost mentality. Now we have a whole generation of sales professionals who really, quite frankly, don't know how to sell. And they're falling apart right now because the clients aren't tolerating their cadences, their generic cadences, their bant questions, they're droning through demos and everything else. And they just want to have a value oriented conversation. And so the skills I'm trying to impart or at least share is I think we got to get back to the fundamentals of what it means to truly be a sales professional. B, improve our business acumen, because clients aren't looking to be qualified. They're looking to have a valuable business conversation with somebody who actually cares. And then C, agility, trying to figure out like how to adapt and evolve in this market that's moving so fast, because what happened what worked 6 months ago is just not working anymore right now. So I'm trying to work with sales orgs to A, get back to fundamentals, B, improve their business acumen, and obviously give them some techniques along the way to help drive results, but then really become agile enough to keep testing and trying different approaches to find out what works for them. Because we hear a lot of these stats about, oh, X amount of touches and use this and use that. Okay. And I think there is a foundation that we can all have a common language about certain components of the sales process. But how you sell, Bill, is different than how I sell, right? We were just talking. You're out in Phoenix. I'm in Boston here, right? I'm a masshole through and through. I come at you really hard, very direct, right? And some people, if they tried my approach, it wouldn't work for them just because it's not their personality. So my goal is to provide a framework that we can use to build from so that you can figure out your approach and I can figure out mine, and we can keep evolving as we go.
So maybe it would help our listeners, John, if you maybe gave us a case study or two,
Yeah, sure.
maybe a large company, a little teeny company. Walk us through how you apply your solutions to the problems you just verbalized.
Yeah, so there's two programs that I deliver. One's called Filling the Funnel, and the other one's called Driving a Close. So Filling the Funnel is
Okay.
all about getting meetings, right? So it's email, phone, social selling, contact strategies, messaging, and everything else to get the meeting. And then Driving a Close is negotiation, objection handling, meeting execution, questioning skills. So depending on the need of the client, and quite frankly, a majority of what I do is on the prospecting side because pipelines are dried up. Cold outbound right now is so a lot of these companies that I work with, they have teams that they've built, SDR, BDR teams, where, yeah, we've cut some of the fat, but they're still in a situation where they're trying to transition into this new world. And quite frankly, nobody knows what the new world is going to be. So we're all living in a legacy model, and we need to figure out how to transition into this new model without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, quite frankly. So with some companies that I work with, it is really helping them with that transition to figure out what works for them. They have a bloated tech stack, the cadence tools and everything else, and they have a bunch of sales reps, and volume just isn't working anymore. Blasting out a million templated emails, making a bunch of generic cold calls. Again, we got lazy with that. So what I do is I come in and reset a lot of ways to say, okay, what do you have that's working right now? But let's come up with some messaging that we can use. There's a formula that I have. I call it sales ready messaging that helps people create sales ready messaging for personas. So like CIO and healthcare, or triggers, right? Merger and acquisition, those type of things. And using this formula, we can craft a bunch of different messages that the reps can put into sequences and be very targeted with our approach so we can test. I took one client who was just absolutely, their pipeline was zero, basically, because they were doing the spray and pray. And by just taking a little subset of their group who really were interested in taking it to the next level, we sectioned off their tier one accounts, tier two accounts, and tier three accounts. And their tier one accounts, those are like the high quality, top 25, whatever. We put in a structure where they could actually be very thoughtful with their contact strategies and personalize it without spending hours and hours doing it. And we put in a routine where every day one of the reps would just pick one account for 30 minutes, do a little bit of research, craft a cadence, and then implement that every single day. So it's easily tracked. But then on a monthly basis, we pick one persona, so CIOs in healthcare, and we craft a relevant cadence to, and we send it out to 100 people who fit that profile to see what's working and what's not with email calls and videos. And by doing this, we increase their pipeline by 30% overnight, basically. Like within a month, they were able to get at least meetings that they can have these conversations with, and started to figure out what messaging worked, what approaches work, what channels work. So for instance, video is great for some people, it's terrible for others. Cold calling is fantastic for some personas. It's not very good for others. So by putting in this framework, they were able to section off and figure out where the least path of resistance was and what personas were giving the highest response rates with what channels.
John, are you typically, you mentioned the term programs. So is this training, coaching, consulting, a combination thereof? How do you actually position the solutions?
Yeah, I'm a trainer. So I know what I'm really good at and I know what I'm not. When it comes to consulting, that's my philosophy is I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to give you the structure. I'm going to give you everything you need. I even have an on-demand portal that you can use to access everything that I got. But it's on you to implement this, right? It's you can't you the whole lead a horse to water scenario. A lot of people say, "What's the reinforcement plan, John?" My answer to that, my question back to them is, "Where are your managers going to be in the training?" Because if your managers aren't going to be involved, if they're not going to take the training, if they're not going to do the prep work, and they're not going to hold the reps accountable, I'll take your money, but it's going to be what training is. It's going to give a nice little bump. Everybody's going to get excited. And then a month or two later, everybody's going to be going back to what they were doing before. So with a strong management team, though, I can work with those managers to give them the tools so that they can implement this and make it real for their organization. So I come in, I make the analogy, I'm like the grandparents, right? I come in, I play with the kids, and then I leave. You're the parents, though. You have to do your job. You have to hold the teams accountable. And quite frankly, you don't want to pay me to be your manager because I'm way more expensive. I'd be way more expensive, and you already have people that should be doing that in the first place. And so it's really just give you the tools, get out of the way, and I'm here as a resource for you if and when you have questions. But one of my favorite testimonials was a guy who called me. I just called to check in with him to say, hey man, how you been? Like, how's the team doing? He's like, man, he's like, really, all you got to do is follow your process and it just works. And I was like, yeah, finally somebody who just doesn't just check the box with training. And that's unfortunately so many people in this space. This is why when executives ask me what the ROI of the training is, I laugh and I'm like, okay, fine. If you want to get into this little game, what are your current conversion ratios for your tier one accounts using emails with personalized approaches? What's that conversion ratio? I don't know. Okay. What's your conversion ratio of your persona driven cadences to this or your stage one to this, that? And very few of them know. And it's like, okay, can we stop asking? If you can't give me a baseline metric to measure from, how in the world could you ask me about ROI? And so I really try to work with the companies that get it and they want to get better and they're willing to put in the work, just like the reps. And those companies, we can do some special things with. I'm not taking credit for Salesforce in any way, shape, or form, but I trained every single rep at Salesforce.com from 2010 to 2018. And it was all on prospecting. And they were one of the fastest growing companies on the planet at that time. Now, again, am I going to take credit for their growth? Absolutely not. But was I a piece of it? Absolutely.
Okay. So you touched on this concept of space. So my next question revolves around that. So, John, how do you differentiate your company from all that competition that's out there, big and small?
Yeah. I don't so I don't know if you're familiar with Simon Sinek, but he has the book called Infinite Game, right? And the concept of infinite game is there's the finite game and the infinite game. The finite game is there's a winner and a loser, there's a beginning and an end, right? So you're playing to beat the competition. A long time ago, I stopped playing that game and I started playing the infinite game. And the infinite game concept is you're just trying to stay in the game. And the reason I did this is because early in my career, I remember being so focused on my competition and beating my competition that I lost focus on selling to the client. And so when I realized that when I would lose deals, it wasn't because I was losing to my competition, it was because I lost focus on the client. So for me, I know this sounds flip, but I don't really have competition. Now, obviously, there are direct competitors to what I do. But for me, I know what I'm great at and I know what I'm average at. And these days, I don't think you can do average work because reviews and feedback and renewals and all that stuff. So for me, I really try to focus on where I can add the biggest value, and anything that is not that, I tend to hand off to my competitors in a lot of ways. And if I lose, it's because either A, I wasn't the right fit, or B, I got to up my game and I didn't do a good enough job in the sales process. If you want to name direct competitors, there's Sandler, Miller Hyman, Taz, Spin, Winning by Design. There's a million of them out there. There's a million training out there. To me, it's more about the fit than my differentiators. And so that's what I look for. I look to see where I can make the biggest impact, and then I lean in heavy. And that's where I pull challenger sale a lot. When I know I can make a true difference for somebody, I will be very forceful on how I know, because I know I can help. But when I can't, I'm the first one to admit it. So that's the way I approach things.
Oh, great. I love that answer. Let's talk about JB Sales. So tell us how you got this idea to start this business and what were the major milestones? What did you learn, John, along the way as an entrepreneur?
How long do we have? So I fell into this. I've been very fortunate in my career in the sense that I've always said I'm not the smartest cat out there, but I think if there was something I was blessed with, it's an opportunistic lens. And I usually can look at a situation and with about 2 or 3 data points and not having to think too hard about it, I'll be like, all right, let's do that. And most of the times it works out. So for me, I went to University of Maryland, graduated a marketing degree because I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. Got into sales with DeWalt. So DeWalt Power Tools recruited heavily out of Maryland, and well, Black and Decker, and DeWalt was owned by Black and Decker. And it was fun. It was under sales, but it wasn't really sales. It was event marketing effectively. Like we got to drive around in a Dodge Ram pickup truck, giving away free tools to construction workers. That was pretty much the coolest thing I could have done out of school. And we didn't even have a quota. It was like, oh, you use Makita drills? Hey, try the DeWalt next time. See you later. So had a blast doing that. Then got promoted to being a Home Depot rep for DeWalt. And that's where sales was really a little bit more, because I had to take, obviously Home Depot had to buy DeWalt, but I had to take that $10,000 order into a $50,000, $100,000 order, right? Then after that, I went to Xerox. That's where I got my real formal sales training education. And I sold copiers to the government. So pretty much couldn't be worse, quite frankly. So that's where I learned how to take rejection and solution selling, because that's what they came up with back in the late 70s. And then I started a company called Thrive Networks. And this was self-funded. We had no money. I was 23. A couple of buddies of mine from high school, we started this together. And I didn't know what I was doing. So I took every training I could. I took Sandler, Miller Hyman, Taz, Spin, all of it. And I came across this group called Basho. And Basho was the first training that I took that I loved. And the reason is because it was super tactical. It wasn't this big theory or this process I had to follow. It was, here's how to send an email. Here's how to make a phone call, make a phone call. So I used Basho to help grow Thrive. We ended up being the fastest growing company in Massachusetts for a few years in a row. Got us to about 85 employees and about 12 million. And then Staples came and bought us. And I spent about a year going through that integration. Come to find out, apparently I'm not a corporate guy. I don't have much of a filter, and I really don't like playing politics. So after a little while, Staples offered me another position. They fired me. And I was looking for a job. And this is where Basho comes in. They asked me, they said, John, you want to be a trainer? And my answer was absolutely not. And they were like, why not? I'm like, I don't like trainers. And the reason is because up until that point in my career, the only type of sales trainers I'd ever come across were either failed sales professionals or professional presenters. And if you've ever been through a training where you could just tell the trainer's never actually done what they're telling you what to do, or if they did it, it was 20, 30 years ago back in my day, and they're wearing a suit that's 3 sizes too big and doing a role play that would never happen in real life, I didn't want to be that guy. So they said, don't worry, you have to use these techniques to sell so you can train so you can get paid. And I was like, ooh, I like the whole practice what you preach thing. So I joined Basho, brought on some bigger ones and took on some bigger accounts. And then to make a very long story short, they screwed it up and I took it over. And it was back in, so learning lesson, 2007, company was doing well, but then the economy started doing this. New CEO came in, fired us all on the spot, like literally fired us all on the spot. And again, going back to be an opportunist, while everybody else was just in a zombie land, oh my God, I got fired. I don't have healthcare anymore. I need a new job. I looked at the opportunity and I said, this guy just walked away from what used to be a $3 million business with an insane client list and a product that everybody loved. Nobody gets to start a business with those 3 pieces. And so I did the Jerry Maguire thing. It's like, hey, who's coming with me? Right. And there was only 2 of the other senior trainers did. We started a company called Kensei Partners and we took over the training basically. And then after that, about 3 years later, I went off on my own, knowing that I probably should have gone off on my own in the first place, but I was just too chicken to, because I'm not really a risk taker. I am, but I'm a calculated risk taker, right? I'm not the live in mom's basement, eat ramen noodles type of guy, right? If there's some pieces there, then okay, yep, I can jump, but I need that foundation. That's where I was able to build it. And then I've taken it from there. And I've been built the company and rebuilt it about 3 times, quite frankly. 23, I had this up to 6 million and about 20 employees. And then the tech industry came to a screeching halt and I went to 0 in 2 months. And so I had to rebuild the whole thing, restructure it again. And now I'm back on my own, doing my own thing and happier for it. So.
Oh, good. That was a great story. Thank you very much. So looking at your business now, what would you say is the key thing holding you guys back?
It's just now it's me and my COO. So it's just 2 of us. I think the thing that would be holding us back is, replicating me. So when you build your business around your approach, your philosophy, those type of things, it's really hard to have other people be you in this world. We did, and it was great when the economy was really going, and people were like, okay, yeah, like training's training, let's go. But when things got really hard, if you didn't have a brand, if you weren't me, those type of things, the relationships weren't there. And so growing again is more to me about lifestyle than it is about growth. I always believe there's two types of companies, right? There's lifestyle companies, there's growth companies. You can't be both. And to me, I'm 48 years old at this point. My daughter just got into high school. I got 4 more years in me of really going as hard as I can. And then after that, after she graduates high school, we're going to move down to Costa Rica and chill out for a while. What's holding me back is probably process, right? Is systematizing a lot of the stuff that I should be systematizing. Me letting go of some of the controls. I'm a bit of a, I don't want to say control freak, but I'm definitely, even outsourcing to an admin is kind of hard for me because I'm a zero inbox guy. I'm super organized, right? So for somebody to take over that part of it, which is that, oh, outsource your email and outsource your scheduling. And I'm so meticulous with that getting somebody else to do that is really hard for me to hand those reins over. Yeah, and I think just overall prioritization, just like everybody else. I think it comes down to the shiny object syndrome where it's like, ooh, squirrel, that type of stuff, and staying focused on what's really important and what's going to get me to my goals. So I'd say those are the things that are holding back. But it's really, I think if I would boil it down, it'd be the systematizing as much as I possibly can so that I can be me and focus on the highest value activities that I'm doing as opposed to checking emails and reviewing things and following up on stuff and admin work. So
Okay, good, good. Our listeners are in all kinds of camps, potential customers, potential employees, etc. How can those various listeners, John, contact you?
yeah, the easiest way is just the website, jbarrows.com. That's where you're going to find everything. You'll find my why, my vision, my values, all the different things that I offer, individual memberships, team memberships. You can find me on LinkedIn. I will say, though, this is going to sound like a humble brag. It's just more annoying than anything else. I've reached the 30,000 limit on LinkedIn, so I can't accept any more connections, but you can still follow me on LinkedIn. But if you want free consulting, so I give away free consulting and tips all the time, and I do it on Instagram. So if you hit me up on Instagram, my handle's John M as in Michael Barrows, Barrows. And that's where ask me any question, just hit me up with a DM and I'll usually get right back to you on those. So those are a bunch of different ways. But I have a YouTube channel that has a ton of free content out there as well. I have my podcast, Make It Happen Mondays, and a newsletter, jbarrows.com/newsletter. So there's a bunch of different ways that people can connect with
Excellent.
me.
I like that list. All right. Tell me, what's the one question maybe I should have thought of that I didn't, and I should have asked you? And then what's the answer to that unasked question, John?
There's a whole host of questions, right? I think it depends on the audience as far as what they're trying to learn. But you started with the Iron Man, Iron Woman of sales and where sales is going. I think that the question that needs to be asked right now is to all of us, quite frankly, not just in sales, but is what can we do that a computer can't? And quite frankly, that question's getting harder and harder to answer right now. I firmly believe that sales reps are getting squeezed out, quite frankly, because I think the lackluster sales or average sales reps, they were able to survive over the years because they just were. That was the only option. Clients had to engage with us because we were the keys to the castle, if you will, as far as getting access to a proposal for this thing. Now with AI being super hyper personalized and being able to answer almost any question a client has, and a client more interested in talking to a solutions architect or customer success than they are sales. I think it's a real question, is that what can we do to add value to this relationship and make sure that the client still sees value in us? And I think that the answer to that is going back to what I was saying earlier, is getting back to sales fundamentals and understanding how to have real conversations with people, not sell them, becoming problem solvers as opposed to sales reps, right? Which is ultimately what sales used to be, by the way. Sales is service. When sales was originally founded way, way back in the day, it was about service. And I think we've gotten away from that and we got to get back to that. And then business acumen, right? I really do think It is sorely lacking right now as far as just the ability to have a normal conversation with somebody so that they don't feel like they're being interrogated. They don't feel like they're being qualified. They feel like you actually genuinely care about helping them in some way, shape, or form. And that comes with preparation, that comes with insight, that comes with curiosity. But I think a lot of it comes from just, like I said, like at the beginning here, the give a shit factor. I can't get you to care. A quick story. One of my reps that worked with me for a while, he had come on board and he had created all this messaging and we created these cadences and we were getting good. He was getting decent responses, but then he leveled off. And he said, John, I feel like I'm doing all the stuff that I should be doing. Um, and I'm just not getting the results I'd expect here. So what do I need to change here to get better results? And I said, Morgan, your results aren't going to change until one thing does. He said, what? I said, until you start giving a shit, man. And he's like, what? I go, look, I know you care about your job. I know you care about working here. I know you care about all that stuff. But until you start genuinely caring about the person on the other end of that phone or the other end of that email and treating them as a person, not a cadence you have to send, not an email you have to send, or a call you have to make, until you start seeing him as a person who wakes up in the morning just like you and I do, has challenges, has a boss yelling at him, those type of things, your results aren't going to change, man. And so I think that we got to get back to that. And I think the answer is the one thing that AI can't do is it can't give a shit. It can pretend to, but it genuinely can't. It's not possible for it to actually care. So I think that's what we need to lean into as humans and get back to that to take it to the next level and survive here in this weird world that we're all getting into.
That's a great question. Great answer, John. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate all your time today.
Yeah.
So everybody, in closing, let's focus on the single fact that our businesses don't become extraordinary in a single moment. Instead, they get the result of the owner first formulating a strategic vision for the future. Number two, having a management system to execute that strategy. And number three, leveraging high performance teams. Whether or not they work directly for you or their resources, like Mr. Barrows here right now. So you can get all those three. Just go to my YouTube channel at Business Mastery Pro. Once again, thanks for listening. John, thanks for spending your time with us today.
Thanks for having me, Bill. I appreciate it.